Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today's lesson is based on baking mistakes you should avoid. Have you been trying to bake moist and delicious cakes and it just seem not to be working out? If you have subscribed to my YouTube channel and you're part of the family already, I say a very big thank you to you for your support always. If you have not yet subscribed, like or comment on any of my videos, please be sure to subscribe and comment. Now let's get started. Point number one. The first point we'll be discussing is when you forget to add in a key ingredient. Imagine when a baker does not add in ingredients that are supposed to help the cake or the dough rise. Take for example, a baker forgets to add in a baking powder, baking soda, or yeast into the baking. Then you're sure to know that the baking may not come out fine or as expected. Point two, when you don't sift your dry ingredient before using, get a fine mesh sieve. Sieve out your stuffs just like this and you're good to go. You do not want any jammed rock or flour or cocoa powder in your baking, and you do not want your baking or your butter to be lumpy. Third point, when you bake at the wrong temperature. I usually advise that you bake at the right temperature. Each recipe has your temperature which you need to bake, and this has a lot to do with the results of your cake. When you bake at the wrong temperature, your cake might come out burnt and not done, or at the same time it can come out done but totally burnt. The third point we'll be talking about is when you do not follow a recipe. When you're not following recipes, please be sure to follow recipes when you're baking. I've always said it in my videos that baking is a science and you need to add in whatever it needs for you to add so it can come out fine. So baking is something you need to do with all your add. You can't just start baking at any point in time and you can't just start baking, do whatever you want and expect to get the best result or expect to get the same result with someone who has put in all her heart and hard work into doing it. So be sure to follow your recipe strictly. If you're asked to add in your buttermilk, asked to add in your vinegar, you should do well to follow instructions strictly so that you can get the best results. The next point we'll be talking about is when you don't measure your ingredients. When it comes to baking, we have stuff to take measurements. We have baking cups for liquid ingredients and we have baking cups for dry ingredients, which you can also use to measure your liquid ingredients. We also have digital scales that you can use when you want to measure. So when it comes to baking, you should do well to measure your recipes very well. You do not want to eyeball ingredients when it comes to baking. Whatever the recipe recommends that you go for, please push it, go for it, and you have a good result. The next point we'll be talking about is when you check on your item too frequently. That is a no for me. Do not check on your recipes too frequently. Have you ever been told you are not permitted to open your oven in the first 30 minutes you have your stove in there? If the type of oven you're using is the one that have glass on the surface like this or at the front like this, do well to peep through your window through it and you'll see whatever you want to see. But we'll take out the heat that is supposed to circulate in the oven and bake your stuff. We'll take it out at that particular point in time, and when you close it back, the oven will try to regulate the heat back so that every corner in the oven can be warm. And at that time when the oven is trying to regulate the heat back, your cake, your dough, whatever you have in the oven will start losing its strength. That is where the problem comes in. So please take note, do not open your oven in the first 30 minutes you go into baking. And another point is, do not forget to preheat your oven. Preheating oven is very, very important. The next point we'll be considering is being in a haste to finish. If you want to bake, you have to give your time, your energy into it. You do not want to bake in a hurry. If you bake in a hurry, you may possibly forget stuff that you're supposed to add into it. you may leave out some ingredients, some important ingredients. Have you ever been told that the more you beat your butter and your sugar determine the result of your cake, especially when it comes to how much it rises? Have you ever been told? So the amount of air you beat into your butter and your sugar will determine how much your cake is going to rise. Another point in today's lesson is when your dough or your batter is too tough. Now, when your dough is too tough or your batter is too tough, this may be because you added too much of dry ingredients into your stuff, and that may be as a result of you not following the recipes that were mentioned earlier. So you need to follow your recipe. When your dough or your batter is too tough, definitely your dough or yes, your dough after baking will come out too tough or too strong, or your cake may come out to be too hard or not even chewable at all. The next point I'll be talking about is when your ingredients are at the wrong temperature. When your ingredients are at the wrong temperature, what does that mean? It means I want to bake, my butter and my eggs are inside my refrigerator or inside my freezer. Okay, because I'm in a haste, you see where that point comes from? I am in a haste, or I'm in a hurry to bake and get it and get my baking over with. So because I'm in a hurry, I bring out my eggs and my butter from the refrigerator, pop it into my mixing bowl and start baking straight up. No, it should not be like that. All your baking ingredients should come to room temperature. I'm not saying cold or cool, but room temperature. When it's at room temperature, then you're good to go. So never bake your cake or your dough or whatever you're baking with stuff sticking from the refrigerator or from the freezer. Do not use them immediately. Be sure you let them come back to room temperature before use. That is all we'll be taking for today. Just to run a summary through what we have discussed. So let's quickly run a brief summary of what we've discussed so far. The first point is when you forget to add a key ingredient. 2. When you don't sip dry ingredient before use. 3. When you bake at the wrong temperature. 4. When you don't follow recipes. 5. When you're not measuring your ingredients before use. 6. When you check on the items in the oven too frequently. 7. When you're in a haste to finish baking. When dough or batter is too tough. The next point, when your ingredients are the wrong temperature. Remember to always bring all ingredients back to room temperature before use. Then the next point is when your dough isn't rising. That is the last thing we'll be talking about today. Now, I decided to add this because it's one of the problems that most of us are facing. After going through the stress of mixing and kneading your dough on your work surface, it can break one heart when they refuse to rise after an hour, 2 hours, or more. Now, what are the possible causes of this and how can we avoid it? This may have happened because your yeast has expired or is dead. Due to dead or expired yeast, your dough may not rise. One other problem is you may have killed the yeast with too much heat. Heat in the yeast can also kill the yeast and not make it work well. Now, what's the solution? When you're baking with yeast, you should activate it first by lightly heating up your water, your milk, or any liquid you want to use in baking. Any liquid of choice at all. You can heat up the milk or you can heat up the water. Just lightly heat it up. It doesn't have to be too hot. For you to know if the water is warm enough, just dip your finger into it. If you can take it, if you can endure it, then it's fine. Then your yeast can endure it. But if it's too hot, you can't dip your finger inside. Or if you dip your finger inside, you take it out instantly, then definitely it will kill your yeast too. And be sure to check the expiry date of your yeast or baking powder when you're buying, so as to avoid stories that touch. So if you know that you don't want to fall victim of this issue of my dough not rising or my baking powder not working well or is not activated, please check the expiry date and be sure that they are still working fine before use. Okay, before you use your yeast, you can be sure that when you proof it, it should look just like this. It should have bubbles like what we have here. So when it has these bubbles, then you know that your yeast is active and it can work fine for your work. But what about baking powder? Yes, I've had questions like, if my yeast is like this, then I know that it's fine and I can use it. What about baking powder? You add it into your store first. Then I usually answer people that know. You can test your baking powder to know if it is active or if it is working well too. I'll be dropping a video very soon on how to test your baking powder, if it is still active or if it is still fine. Stay tuned, and until next time, please like, comment, and until next time, I look forward to bringing you the best or the best content when it comes to baking. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can have more as time goes on. And please, if there are things I didn't mention in this video, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. Or if you have any questions relating to baking, then please drop it there. I'll be glad to provide answers to your questions. It's good to have you all today. Thank you. Bye.